is going on, everyone? Welcome to the J and J Power Hour. This is the last Power Hour for a couple of weeks because next week, of course, is SummerSlam week. Not that I've literally watched no wrestling for a little while, but it is the SummerSlam simulation taking place at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday night, 9:30 a.m. my time on Wednesday. It's the same time as NXT, so
yeah,
just switch
and then
over
the
NXT.
very next morning at like 4 a.m. I have my time, obviously Eastern Standard Time. I will be at the airport getting on a plane to go to Nashville
So
because
I'm gonna
was the
make
fool
sure
that spent a lot of money to go see SummerSlam. Even though the match they announced on Raw, even though it's a rematch, I think it's actually a fitting one.
Yeah, but
I'm excited about
dude,
it. But
I'm not going to get into SummerSlam on this show, but it's pretty B level at the moment.
Oh my God, yeah, it's brutal.
But yeah, I'm going to make sure JPJ is up real late, so then he has to get up on a flight. And
I like to sleep on the plane. I'm a big
Exactly, so
sleeper
I'll
on
keep
the
him up.
plane, so that will help me.
I can nearly guarantee that the SummerSlam simulation next week over on my Twitch, twitch.tv/JoshRobinson_00 will be a shit show because it always is. So
and 100% accurate, and anything that happens on those streams happens at the show. Spoilers
galore, but we'll have a damn good time. We always do. So make sure you come and join us next week. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this because basically I was watching something on Monday night on Fox Footy, which is the AFL channel on our your version of cable, which is Foxtel here.
Yeah.
So basically, I was watching this program called On the Couch, and there was this story about a young man. His name's Patrick. He's younger than I am. He's 22, 23 now. But when he was 19 years old, 20 years old, he got drafted by the AFL to play for the West Coast Eagles. Now, he was in the B League. So basically, he wasn't playing AFL. I don't know if he ever played a game of AFL, but he was drafted by the West Coast Eagles to potentially play in the AFL. He was in their B squad. Basically, he was just playing a game during the week, and he hit his head, and he said that he thought he got a concussion. He said his neck was sore. He was like, oh, this isn't great. Fast forward, I'm skipping through some of this story. I'm going to link the article and the video that you can watch in the description so you can kind of get... So before you do any of this, maybe pause this and go watch it. It takes about 6 minutes. You can watch
it's like a 6-minute video. Yeah.
And you can read the article if you don't want to watch the video, but basically he explains it a lot better. But this guy got fucked up. This guy got really fucked up. He compressed some like a bunch of C
a disc.
levels.
He compressed like a bunch of discs in his C vertebrae.
C6,
7 and 8, I think he said, or 5, 6, 7. So it was multiple. It was multiple.
It's not a good thing. And basically, he's in the prime of his life, can't get out of bed, can't do anything. He was resorting to, he was trying everything to avoid surgery because you don't want to have surgery on your neck if you can avoid it, basically, because you have one of these. Your spine affects your everyday life. Your neck affects your everyday life. This kid couldn't get up. He couldn't walk down the stairs. He had to rely on everything. He was an athlete. He said he was an athlete his whole life. He played basketball when he was, underage and everything like that, and then tried AFL, got drafted, and then this happened. So, he ended up having to have some kind. He's had now 17 spinal surgeries, and he's 23. That's insane. But he was trying everything he could. He had to try and get different kinds of medicines, and had to resort to getting them off the street because he couldn't get enough. And it's just he wanted to end his life and stuff like that. He called the Euthanasia of Victoria to see about life, dying.
Yeah,
he wanted to. He couldn't live this quality of life, but he was on the show and basically talking about how the reason I'm bringing this up is because I wanted to generate this to all sports, and the level of assuming that I've done in all sports is that you sign the contract for any kind of sport in the world, and if something goes wrong, you're covered. Like, that organization will pay for you. Well, what we've now learnt throughout this story, and I know a lot of Australians or a lot of people that follow AFL will now know this, is that AFL is arguably the biggest sport in this country. I think it is. Some people say the NRL, but that's rugby, and I don't necessarily agree. Some people say cricket, but I think the AFL is the biggest sport in Australia. And a lot of people around the world that would say that it's one of the most fun sports in the world of just like, hey, this is actually really cool. It should translate to the rest of the world, and just doesn't. But I thought that the AFL would cover this man, basically with surgeries and trying to get him to a acceptable quality of life. I mean, you break your neck and you're not going to always have the best quality of life in general, but just, to get him through everyday life.
Yep.
And what we've learned is that that is not the case. Basically, the AFL's policy in layman's terms that you have to lose a limb to be covered by the AFL. I sent this to JPJ last night and said, I want to talk about this on the show, but I want to kind of put this into a perspective of the rest of the world, is that are sporting organizations actually looking at athletes and actually caring about their health and safety? And like basically when you sign a contract, you would assume, or you would think that they would have some kind of an insurance thing within their organization to say, hey, if you break your neck, if you break your arm, if you break whatever, we're going to help you and we're going to make sure we hold your hand every step of the way to pay for this, to get you back to an acceptable quality of life, and if possible, get you back in the game, because I guess that's what they all want. Now, we know, even Patrick said this in the interview, hey, an athlete's life expectancy within their, prime fit years is pretty, it's 4 or 5 years is the average time that someone will be an athlete in this world, at least in the AFL. I'm sure it's the same in the NFL and really wherever you are playing pretty intense contact sports. It's pretty short. Like, you're an athlete for a very short period of your life, but you need to make sure that after those 4, 5, 6 years, you're then living a normal life and able to walk, able to move, able to just live your life after athlete, because you're putting your body through a lot, no matter what kind of field of sport, especially contact sports like the AFL, like the NFL. Like, you're putting your body on the line every time you kind of go. And of course, wrestling will always come up. Wrestling's, I know some people like it's not a sport, but whatever. But they're still athletes and they're still putting their body on the line every single day. So like I said, I assumed that the AFL would cover this man. That's not the case. The only reason that he got any kind of a settlement, which he stated in the interview, was not about getting $1 million, millions and millions of dollars payout. It was about he would give that all back in a heartbeat if it means he could just live his life. But the only reason he actually got this was because a sports lawyer seen his story that a media personality wrote, seen his story and said, I want to help you. I want to go after the AFL and make sure that you are covered for this, because this isn't right that you're not able to move. That's insane to me. I think that's pretty disgraceful. I'm obviously a massive AFL fan. I think it's the greatest sport in the world, but that is absolutely appalling that they're not taking care of their athletes. 3 years ago, this was 2019, he said this happened. So 3 years ago, he was 19 years old playing sport, and then all of a sudden his life is ripped away from him. He said his family was going to Europe to see his brother, and he cannot attend that because he cannot sit on a plane for however many hours it takes to get to Europe, because it's just insane to him that, like, he cannot do those things as a young man. Like, I could never imagine, like, not being able just to do what I want because my body won't allow me to.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. Not that we're athletes or anything like that, but
no,
you would assume,
still though,
that these massive sporting organizations would be taking care of their players. So
it's not always the case. It's not always the case.
Did you assume that even before? I know obviously you don't follow AFL, but like even before this, I showed you this story yesterday, JPJ. You must have assumed that places like the AFL and the NFL would cover their athletes for something going wrong like this.
Well, all right. So being a big NFL fan, current player, like, so this situation it was Patrick Bynes. Was that his name? Bynes? Anyway.
Yeah.
With this particular scenario with a player that got injured while playing, that's a different scenario. The NFL, right? If you get injured, so it's kind of tricky when it comes to the NFL. So if you get injured, if you were playing on the NFL, Josh, and you broke your leg and you had to have surgery and rehab for 9 months, the team that you play for, let's say you were playing for the New England Patriots, right? The team that you play for is paying for the doctor visit. Now, as an NFL player, because of the players union, and I don't know if the AFL has a players union, I'm assuming they probably do.
They would have to.
They should at least. But the NFL players union, which that's another problem when you talk about America.
Basically, just to bribe it, they have the players tribunal. So basically anything that goes wrong, they take it to the tribunal and say, okay, what the fuck?
Exactly. So that's basically what the union would be over here.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think about because it's sport, but two of the most powerful unions in this country of America are the MLB Players Union and the NFL Players Union.
Yeah, they would be.
They are literally like two of the most powerful unions in all of the country. The NFL, because of the Players Union and their power and what they voted on and have worked out, the players have their option to seek a second medical opinion. So the team will pay for them to go to the team doctor, whatever the hell it is. Like, here, you broke your leg, go see this guy. He'll tell us what we need to do. You as the player have a right to be like, I kind of want to go see my guy. If you have a different guy, whatever. But at the end of the day, the team pays for the medical bills, the surgery, the rehab, all that stuff.
Yeah.
However, there was an issue, and there still is. The NFL's paid some money back to these people. There were issues when it came to veteran NFL players because the span line, unless you're a quarterback, and there's obviously other positions where players have played longer, but like the lifespan of an NFL career is not, and I don't know how long. There's always going to be exceptions. You're always going to have those legends that play for 15 years and you're like, holy crap, look at this guy. But I don't know what the actual career span average is for an AFL player.
Again, like you said, there's always exceptions. There's some people that play for 15, 16 years, but you're playing when you're an athlete in the AFL, your prime years are like when you're like 21 to about 25, 26. Like, so 6 years is
5-6 years of your prime. Yeah. So 5-6 years of your prime, but you probably they probably keep you around, a couple of the years when you're on the other side. So let's just say the average is an 8-year career.
Sure.
Okay. We'll just call it that. The NFL and the AFL has some, you can hit them, you can tackle them to an extent and things like that. Yeah. The NFL is obviously, it's like a car crash. Every play is a car crash. These people are killing each other, So you can imagine when these 32, 33-year-old men retire and they're 50 or 52 and they played 8 years of getting in car wrecks weekly, they're going to need surgery. Their knees, their body is going to deteriorate because they literally beat the shit out of it for 10 years. You know what I mean? And the NFL, while you're playing, was taking care of these players. But after you retired, no, you're on your own there, buddy.
I think that's the same here. Now that I know about this, it definitely is that.
Yeah,
case,
and that used to be a big problem. That used to be like, because they were old NFL players that were dying and were in wheelchairs and handicapped and all these things, and they were broke, or they were living off, you can make good money if you're a good player, in sport, you make a ton of money.
Sure.
But like the NFL wasn't taking care of these veteran players. So that was a completely different argument. And the NFL actually had to go to court multiple times because there were old veteran players that were like, dude, you do not take care of your former player. Like, you don't take care of your former players. You should, I'm not saying you should pay for everything, but like you should have some sort of, I'm in this condition because of what I gave to you. I made the sport money. I played in the sport, whether I was a kicker or a quarterback. I played in the sport for X amount of years. If I'm having complications physically or mentally, CTE or whatever, because of what I did playing for you, you bear some of that responsibility. You should take care of my shit. And a lot of the times they weren't. And so it feels like current players, like this example, like this poor kid, he got hurt while he was playing. Yeah, he wasn't in the main league, but he was drafted to a team. He was playing on a minor, I don't know what they call it, B league, minor leagues, whatever the hell it is.
The B, but the West, like you said, how the New England Patriots should take care. The West Coast Eagles should have taken care of this guy.
Even if it's not even if it's not required, you should do good.
Patrick said that he got his injury, didn't really know what was happening. He just thought maybe it's a concussion. Like, because, neck problems can come from a concussion and stuff like that.
Mhm.
He was then delisted at the end of 2019 from the West Coast Eagles because basically they were like, well, what can we do with you? You're hurt. We can't really have you play. And that's when he was like, this is getting even worse and stuff like that. So the West Coast Eagles should be taking care of this kid at least while he's listed as a West Coast Eagles player when this all went down. And I don't know. He said that it's been, fast forward a few years, he said that it's been months now since the AFL have actually contacted him about any of this. Jonathan Brown on the couch, he's a legendary Brisbane Lions player, one of the greats. He said it's disgraceful. And they're on an AFL program. I mean, they're not funded by the AFL. They're funded by Fox Footy. But he said that it's an absolute... He's so ashamed and so that the AFL are not taking care of this kid. And he also was like, I was playing for the AFL for however many years that Jonathan Brown played. Even Nick Revolt said the same thing. He said, I just assumed that if this happened to me, I would be covered. Yeah. I would be covered by this.
So the thing that's crazy to me, especially in this scenario, so I just looked up, that's what I was trying to type away, is seeing so this is for the 2019 season. So I don't know what year this happened, 2020, 2019, somewhere around there, right? It was a couple years ago. The Australian Football League made $961 million in revenue in 2019. $961 million, which spread out to the average revenue per team was $53.4 million per team. That was the average revenue that every team in the Australian Football League made. Regardless if this kid played a minute on the main squad, whatever, your team by average on revenue, and I don't know the revenue sharing, and I don't know that shit about the AF. I barely know that shit about the NFL. Yeah, I care about the product I'm watching. I don't care about that type of shit.
Yeah.
But you're telling me that every team for your league is making $53 million a year, and you can't make sure that this kid's all right? He's not going to be all right for the rest of his life. He's going to deal with this shit forever. But you can't, he has to go on the street and find fucking opioids because you can't get prescribed a lot, and because of his situation, he can't afford them all. He's calling places to try to get help killing himself. And you, as a league, with every team bringing home $53.5 million, you can't take care of this kid for the rest of your life. You can't just be like, hey man, we know we can't replace how your life's going to be for the rest of your life. And we that sucks. We're sorry about that. But here's $20 million. Here, you don't have to worry about a thing the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Whatever. $5 million. I don't care what it is. Yeah. I don't care what it is. That kid shouldn't have to be not able to move to the point where he doesn't want to be alive anymore.
It's not fair.
21, 22. That kid he's a kid. I know you're only 25, 26. He's a fucking kid.
He's younger than me. And
yeah. And he wants to kill himself because he can't afford to get whatever it is he needs to make his life better. Now, he was on the couch. He seemed to be moving around pretty well. He was obviously talking well.
Yeah.
I hope I don't know if they showed him I don't know if he's in I don't know his current state.
They didn't show that, but he was. I did notice that. So I know that you only got to watch a section of. Obviously, you're not in this country. You can't just turn on this program. But
yeah,
the interview went for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But that section of the interview that was on their website was 6 minutes. They just they always do. He was fidgeting a lot. He was doing a lot of this.
Yeah, so he probably he's going to have those issues forever.
And he was pretty emotional. You could see in that kid's eyes that he was trying not to cry, as you would. And he seemed pretty scared. And he kept saying, I'm not trying to take a dump on the AFL. And I'm not either. I love the AFL with all my heart. I just thought that this kind of stuff was not a thing that players had to worry about, because I care about, obviously, I love the game and I love watching it. And I'll do anything for it.
And it's a freak.
But
it's a freak thing.
Also,
you got to take care of the kid.
Yeah,
how do you not?
I want the players to be healthy. I don't want them to get injured. There's a lot of stuff going on in the AFL right now. If I can break it down and try and explain to you they always care about they don't want head injuries to happen. That's the number one thing that you don't want to happen to a player is head injuries, because you've got one brain, you fuck that, and it's done.
It's
so
over.
There's a lot of talk at the moment within the AFL, and anyone that's watching this that follows the AFL pretty passionately will know exactly where I'm going. There's a lot of things going on with, so basically in the AFL, high contact is not allowed. So basically, if it's anything above, like here, if
shoulders or
if someone's getting tackled and they're going around, that's a free kick against them, because they don't want high tackles to happen. Hey, you're being punished for tackling someone with high contact. Well, there's a lot of players in the AFL at the moment, or a small minority of players that are initiating high contact. So when they're getting tackled, they're dropping their head. So their head's hitting the ground and they're getting a free kick because that player's high contact. But they're actually putting their arms up or putting their arms down, so they're going around their neck and stuff like that. So they're the ones initiating. And the AFL are trying to cut that out by saying, like, if you are the one initiating high contact, you are not going to get rewarded for this. So there's a lot of discussion around a lot of players. Jack Ginnivan's one of them from Collingwood. That he's kind of the poster boy for this at the moment, because he knows how to initiate high contact, which I guess is a skill in itself, and it's a fine line, because how can an umpire call that on the field in the heat of the moment? Like, was he initiating that, or did that player get him high? So the AFL are trying to balance that because they don't want head injuries. But the reason I bring that up is because, listen, like you said, there's always going to be freak accidents that happen in any sport. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing, something could always happen. 100%. However, sporting organizations should be doing everything they can to A, prevent this from happening, or avoid this from happening, and B, taking care of players when it does inevitably happen. And for someone like Patrick Bynes, who went through this and now is living this kind of life, you have to think of all of the other people within the AFL, within the NFL, within all sports everywhere in the world that are going, hey, wait a fucking minute. This happened to me, and my organization, my sporting league did not take care of me, and I need to seek out this. I'm sure that at least in this country, this is going to open up a can of worms on the amount of players that are about to come out and say, something happened to me and the AFL did not take care of me. And there's going to have to be some policy that gets put in place by the AFL. They're a massive, like you said, they're making how much money a year, did you say?
Oh, they made, oh my God, it was like 493. It was $53.5 million per team.
So there's 18 teams in the league. So you do the math on that, everybody. That's a lot of fucking money. Okay? That's a great chunk of money. There's going to have to be something that comes into place now that goes, oh, we can't have this. It's a PR nightmare, because a lot of people are now finding out that players are not getting taken care of. And the players in the league itself are now going to be going, hey, wait a minute. I'm not covered for this situation if I get hurt. And I want to call it.
I'm sorry. In 2021, so this is a more recent one, because I think the one I had was 2019. They earned, as a league, $738 million.
Well, don't forget that we didn't have crowds for those 2 years. So,
that makes sense.
So we made that. So we're getting on the cusp of, $1 billion company in this country.
$1 billion league. Yeah.
And in Australia, it's a little bit different to America. There's still, like, sport is huge everywhere in the world. Yeah. But when it comes to, the tippy top of sports, the AFL is our equivalent of the NFL. And we have rugby and we have cricket, which is also big numbers as well. But the AFL is it's a juggernaut. Obviously, when it's making $700 million a year in gross revenue, that is huge. That is a obscure amount of money. And in that money, you got to add on to the fact that, what about all the money from gambling? They said this on the couch. They said, so all the money could you imagine how much money is in the gambling industry on just that sport alone? Yeah. Just an obscure amount of money. And they said, why aren't we taking something like that and adding them to making sure that the money that goes from gambling to the AFL is then covering insurance policies for every player that signs on the dotted line? Because it's ridiculous that it's not happening. And again, we just want, no matter how much we love the sport, health and safety is always going to be parallel, whether we're watching AFL, NFL, whether we're watching professional wrestling. Like, we know the dangers of everything that goes on there as well. So we wanted to kind of, I know this is a lot of people watch wrestling that watch this show, and a lot of people don't know what the AFL is, or they don't even watch the NFL, but you know what sport is, of course. But with professional wrestling, we always assume that, well, it seems, at least on surface level, at least in a WWE land, I'm sure in AEW, at least in a major company land, that if athletes are getting injured, they're pretty taken care of, which seems to be the case in wrestling. Now, we're never going to be able to find out if that's actually the case without being there ourselves. You know how wrestling is. It's a very open land, but it's also a very closed land. I don't think we'll ever know, so there's probably no point elaborating on this too much. But at least it seems on the surface level that we'll just talk WWE because it's, you know, the one with the most history. If someone gets hurt, WWE are like, Birmingham, go get your
and it seems like I would assume that WWE's covering that shit.
Well, you would hope.
Yeah, and even when it comes to like non-physical injuries, we've heard all these stories of like WWE fronting rehab bills and paying for even older wrestlers. Like they paid for Scott Hall to go to rehab well after he was performing and earning them money. You know what I mean? So it seems like for all the faults that we complain about, you know, and however we feel about the person running the show over there, it seems like that is one area that they do right by their talent, at least, is like, hey, if you get injured here in the ring, we're going to take care of you. If you have issues outside of the ring, but it's affecting you here, like, we hope again. We'll pay for your shit to go get fit. Like we'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it should be. I think, you know, there's things that come with it. You know, they add contract time to you because you were injured and stuff like that. There's things that are going to come with it, right?
But at least you're covered.
But yes, you don't have to worry. You don't have to be like this poor kid and worry like, oh my God, I got injured doing something I love. Now I have to pay for my medical bills and try to find out how I can live comfortably with no help.
He said, to go back to Patrick Bynes, he said, you know, they asked him, since this injury, have you been able to get back into the workforce at all? And he said, the problem with me is that I live day to day at this stage, is that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of bed one day, and I don't know until that morning of whether I can get out of bed or not. He doesn't know what kind of employer will employ him. And the poor kid was an athlete all of his life. He probably didn't know anything but other than being an athlete.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you're at that level,
he was trying to be a basketball player, and he said he was playing basketball since he was a kid, like a young kid, and he played up until, you know, he was playing. He realized that when he was 17, he didn't really have quite the amount of skills to get to the NBA. That was his dream, to go to the NBA, and then someone got him onto AFL, and he was like, "Wait a minute, maybe I can do this." Played it for a year, and then got drafted by the West Coast Eagles. That's a pretty significant. You must have somewhat of natural talent.
That means he was basically a natural. Yeah.
You know, and he said he liked it. It's not like he was, you know, oblivious to AFL. But like, imagine being an athlete your whole life. It's not, you know, your side jobs are just like, you're going to go work at McDonald's just to make a few extra bucks because you want to play sport. You know what I mean? Like you're not trying to, you know, work in the normal workforce because that's not your goal. You know what I mean? You have other aspirations in life. So I couldn't imagine what it would be like for him. When I was watching that story on Monday night, I was like, this is just hitting in a certain way. And it really I was just like, A, just like what we said, I didn't realize that they weren't covered. And B, just like, I couldn't imagine that quality of life. And like, I'm not saying this in the slightest, like he was right to think this, but I understand his mentality of speaking with Youth Nation Victoria and saying, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, this is not the quality of life that I can't do this. Like, imagine, JPJ, you're stuck every day. He said he was spending all day in bed on his phone, and he was just basically just like laying there like a lifeless lump, basically. That's not living. Like, why would you want to be alive in that?
Yeah.
Like, it's just wow to me.
Yeah. And it, you know, reading the whole article and getting into it, and when he started talking about that type of stuff, and he started talking about how opioid issue that affected his mood. And, when you're on those, you're just in a different world and you don't want to do anything. Like even the fact that like he's sitting there all day or laying there all day and he wants to do something, the opioids would put him in a situation where like even if he could, he didn't want to. You know what I mean? Because those things are dangerous.
Yeah, they are.
And
that's why you can only get certain levels.
Exactly, and that's why. But
basically, if he was
in so much pain.
He said he was going to the pharmacy, and it would send off basically a red alert if he was
getting too much.
So that's why he had to go on the streets and
on the street, which legally. That can't be the safest. Like you don't know what the hell you're getting on the street sometimes. Like, it's a very.
And he said he was anti-drug all of his life too.
Yeah, and now he's never going to be able to live without him for the rest of his life.
That is so sad.
Probably.
Like it's
terrible.
It's so sad. Like, when they were talking to him, the three hosts of On the Couch,
like the former players and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they were all the host of that show. They said basically like they were just like, what the fuck? Basically, they didn't say that. Obviously, they're on a television show. But they were like, you could see the look on their face because Jonathan Brown and Nick Revolt, which are the two co-hosts, then you got Gary Lyon, the host of On the Couch. Jonathan Brown and Nick Revolt both met Patrick for the first time earlier that morning. They said, and they said that basically, he explained his story to those two guys, and they were just like, what? Like they were just like so taken back by it all, and it's a pretty remarkable story. It's remarkable that he's still alive.
Yeah, and it says a lot about him. It says a lot about him. Like when you're at that moment where you're literally making a phone call to see if you can find someone to help you kill yourself, and then however long after that you're on that type of platform that he was on that show talking about his story, that takes a lot of guts. And it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of heart to do that, because he could have easily given up. He could have easily, he was almost there. He was on that doorstep, but he could have just been like, you know what, fuck this. I'm out. But he didn't.
I don't know what it is in the States, because that's a whole thing with laws and stuff.
It is illegal in the States.
It's legal in some states in this country to have basically life end assistance from medical. It's hard. It's not like you can just walk into a place and be like, kill me. But you have to have legitimate medical reasons of my quality of life is not okay. I'm making this decision. I would like you to terminate my life, basically. That is legal in Victoria.
Okay.
I don't know if it's legal in the state I'm in, South Australia, but I know it is in a couple of states. But basically it says that you can do that.
There used to be a famous guy in America. His name was Dr. Kevorkian, Jack Kevorkian. They made an HBO movie after him that Al Pacino played him, of all people. He was actually good in it. It was a good movie. But he was like a famous he was known. He was like, when I was a kid, you knew who he was. Like you knew his name, you knew, Dr. Kevorkian, so I'm assuming at some point in my youth that it was okay in some states, or it was okay under certain loopholes, bylaws. I have no idea, because this guy was a well-known, highly popularized doctor, and that's what he did. He was euthanasia. I don't know when. I probably easily could look it up because I'm literally at a computer, but I am almost 1,000% positive it is 100% illegal in all of the United States of America
it's currently. Very touchy. Some people believe in it, some people don't. I believe in it to a certain degree of like, if you're not getting the quality of life that you deem appropriate, it obviously has to be pretty intense for you to be able to do this. But if you're making the decision and medical personnel are agreeing with you, like doctors and stuff like that, are saying like, I don't believe that you're getting a quality of life enough to keep living, it should be your choice, and you're doing it in a way that is much more I guess safe, for a lack of a better term, than just doing it yourself. Because if you're not doing it this way, if you've made that decision, a lot of people unfortunately will take their own life in another way. So it's insane. We won't go too down the road of that because it's a whole nother can of worms. But
Yeah.
to take it must take a pretty heavy toll on you to go like, holy shit, like I'm going to actually contact this place to see if I can end my life. Like,
I mean, I'm
especially
sure
when
it
you're
wasn't
that
just
young.
though, I'm sure he didn't just wake up one day and go, yeah, I'm doing this. Like this
Yeah.
is probably as this was happening to him and his mind was deteriorating from like, holy shit, is this really, I'm 21. Is this really the next 50 years of my fucking life? Is
Yeah.
this like, it was probably a process for him to get to that day of I'm making this fucking phone call.
Yeah.
I'm making this phone call. And
He's
like
lucky
I said,
that,
I don't think,
I know that he,
know,
not, I shouldn't say he's lucky. He's not lucky at all, but the fact that he's even able to walk right now is a miracle.
Big
To
time.
compress your, you could be paralyzed very easily, and he probably was for a little while.
Yeah. I've had a very minor injury. I had a bulging disc in my neck, and it was it was like my C11 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
It was like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was just bulging, which means it's not ruptured, it's not collapsed. It's in, there's something wrong with it. I needed to get shots for it and like take medicine and go to rehab for it. But it was a minor injury compared to obviously this, but it was a minor injury compared to what can happen, right?
Yeah.
And it was, when I tell you it was debilitating, just that. Like if I bent over the wrong way, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I there were certain things I couldn't do, like my regular functions that I couldn't do. And that was like the most minimal injury you could have. So imagine multiple discs collapse. Like that is like, dude. And like you said, right at the shoot, you start messing with your spine and your neck. That's life. That's your life right
the
there.
End. Yeah.
And
there's
it's
no
just
getting
like,
that back. Like it's just, I know it's a whole situation. Again, please make sure that at this point you probably have, but go in the description below and read or watch the video. The video does explain everything that you need to kind of know. And you can kind of just, within the first minute, you can see the body language of this guy just kind of says it all. And the body language of the three hosts on the couch, on the couch, they kind of just like, what the actual hell? Like, we can't believe
like
this.
literally.
Because, just an insane story.
It really is. It's brutal.
I just wanted to kind of focus on that today because it's just whether you know what AFL is, whether you follow it, whether you're someone that is in this country, and I'm wearing an AFL beanie right now, so obviously I'm a fan, and like if you're someone that is, but even if you're not, it's pretty transparent, pretty much floats across the board. This guy got fucked up, and it's just just highlighting that story is very important, I think, and because we both love our sports with all of our heart, we want, not that we can change anything, but just don't assume that your favorite player is covered by the organization they should be covered for, because it's wrong. And again, we're not trying to shit all over our sports. We love them, but like also doesn't mean it's perfect, because it's definitely not perfect, and there's a lot of things that go wrong, and this should not be a thing that we should have to talk about, in the sense of like, not injuries. Injuries are a thing, but like,
injuries are always going to be a part of
at least
sports,
they are helped. At least their hands are held throughout this process, because I mean, come the fuck on, guys. I couldn't imagine living that life. But I know it's a little bit of a shorter episode, guys, but that's okay. I wanted to really cover that, and I knew JPJ would be interested in this.
Yeah, and so I know we talked about the NFL briefly and like how they currently take care of their players, but the NFL has a financial side to it, and I don't know how the AFL works with this. So like, let's say you were an AFL player, you signed a 6-year contract worth whatever.
Yeah,
you injure yourself the next week. In the NFL, now there's guaranteed money. If you're a good player in the NFL, when you sign a contract, you're getting a certain part of guaranteed money. That's the money you're getting no matter what happens. But if I'm a great quarterback in the NFL and I sign a 10-year deal for $250 million, and in week 1, my leg falls off and I can't play football ever again, the NFL goes, oh, sorry about that, and I don't get any of that money.
See, I don't know how it works here. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how that would work. I'd assume you wouldn't get paid, because I don't know though. Like,
yeah. So it's weird because the NFL works that way, but then there are some sports like baseball. Your money is guaranteed immediate. You sign a 20-year contract and you have to retire year one because of something, you're getting paid forever.
Yeah,
it's guaranteed.
I don't
So
know how it works.
It's very bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to look in to see how the AFL does their stuff, but the NFL at least will take care of you medically if you get injured playing. But like all the money and all the contracts that you signed, if you're done or you can't fulfill that contract, tough shit. You're not getting any. You're not getting any of this money. So it's more of a like. And again, this story that happened with this young kid is like.
It's one in a million,
this is a completely different scenario. But when you start talking about our players in these major sports really getting taken care of as well as we think they are from like this standpoint, the NFL kind of does it opposite way. They're like, hey, we'll take care of you here, but like you're not getting any of this. You're not getting any of this money.
Yeah, I don't know how the AFL works. It'd be interesting to look into that. But yeah, I really don't know because there's, not that any position is less of, but there's some great key forwards in the AFL. Key forwards are the ones basically that are kicking your goals. Midfielders and stuff can do it as well, even defense.
So are the key forwards like?
Well, it's different though because I know there's a lot of emphasis on like a quarterback and stuff in the NFL. That's
they basically
not necessarily
run the show.
It's not necessarily the case here. You work a little bit more as a team. Everyone's kind of. There's a captain and stuff like that, but they could be any position. And you a lot of players can sometimes will play forward, sometimes they'll play midfield, sometimes they'll play deep. Like, it's just, you can it's a little bit more interchangeable, but there's some great key forwards in the AFL that I know, what about if they get injured? Are they paid for it? Is their contract nil and void? I don't know. And I'm sure someone with way more knowledge than I would be like, Josh, this is how it works. But, again, a lot of those people that are probably saying that also probably assume that their favorite player are covered for if they do get hurt. So I don't know. And I guess it's always going to be, there's certain cases that, it's a case, sure. And there's always, factors that come into it. But this story has brought a lot of light to the Australian sporting industry, especially within the AFL. So it's just really, I'm sure a lot more will come out in the next, this interview.
And we talked about, before we get out of here, we talked about his bravery and like how he was very adamant, like, hey, dude, I'm not doing this to fuck the league. Like, that's not my intention. No. But even
Jonathan Brown,
part of what he's doing is to make it better for the next time that something fucking crazy like this happens.
Jonathan Brown said, listen, mate, I'm saying this, not you, but this is disgraceful. Like, and he's a person
legend.
That covers.
Is he like a legend?
Jonathan Brown is a legend of the Brisbane Lions. Yeah. Like, people will know that name. Even people that don't watch football will know of Jonathan Brown. Even Nick Revolt, who played for St Kilda, a legend of St Kilda. So like, Jonathan Brown said this is disgraceful, and this is a man that covers football every single weekend. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, he is on Fox Footy and he's a commentator for Fox Footy. He is like an analyst of football at this stage in this part of his, he's a former player. And like, if he is saying like, listen, mate, I know you're not trying to take a dump and this is not you saying this, but I'm saying this. If he's saying that it's disgraceful and he's appalled by this, you've got to imagine 100%. That a lot of players in the industry would look up to Jonathan Brown and go, well, holy fuck, I'm a current player right now. What about if that happens to me?
Yeah, and I would think some of the brass that are higher up, they have to look at a guy of that caliber who's on their weekly shows that are probably paid for by the fucking league and all this shit. Like the NFL, they have all their shows on Fox and CBS, all that. Yeah, the NFL pays for those fucking shows to be on TV. I'm sure the AFL does a similar thing. Sure. If they have one of their main guys who has influence amongst the fans, amongst former players, current players, a legend of the sport, and he's saying, whoa, I did not know that this was going on. This is fucked up. This needs to change. That's the type of shit that's going to actually make shit change.
I would hope so. And I'm sure in the next couple of days over the programs that I see and the articles that I see, more stuff will be coming out about this. Because I don't think this is going to be just an issue that just happens and then it's just like, bye.
No.
Like, I couldn't imagine that would happen. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens over the next few days and weeks and months and stuff like that, especially as we come towards the end of the season when, I know this sounds horrible, there's less to talk about in the off season and there's more highlights on the other things that are happening in football. So, you know, it'll be interesting. It'll be a very interesting time. So yeah. I wanted to talk about that. And yeah, just kind of shine not that we have a big light, but like just talk about stuff that we adore and we watch every single week is our versions of football. So like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is going on? So, but anyway, we won't be back next week. Like I said at the start of the show, we're doing our SummerSlam simulation. 8 p.m., same time as NXT next week. That's easier to say because of time zones. Same time as NXT, we're simulating SummerSlam. It'll be a shitstorm. So come and hang out. Twitch.tv/Josh Robinson 00. It's all at the bottom of the screen right there. Make sure you follow us on all our platforms. It's all on the screen. It's all in the description. So make sure you do that. And we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, if you're not going to join us for the Twitch stream, which you should. That's basically the episode of the Power Hour.
Those are a blast. You should definitely be there.
It's basically the equivalent of the Power Hour, just in a shitstorm of a fucking mess. And really, I hate to say this, and I know that it's wrong, but I'm not watching a lot of wrestling at the moment, at least for the current time. So this is your chance if you want to hear us talk about wrestling a lot. Next week is the time, because it's the time where I can listen to JPJ tell me what the fuck's been happening in wrestling, and also just get geared up for SummerSlam, which I'm probably not going to watch anyway because I'm going to be away. But like, it's just the one time of the month that you might be able to actually hear us talk about wrestling in complete full. We won't talk about anything else. So if you're into those if you're one of those people that's like, I don't want to listen to these two unless they're talking about wrestling, come hang out on Twitch next week. And then in 2 weeks, we'll talk about more other stuff that we're just, because this show's kind of just evolving into that. I'm not going to force myself to talk about wrestling if I'm not watching it, because I don't think there's a lot of people I've noticed within the wrestling Twitter world that don't actually watch anything and take a dump on it. And I don't think that's fair.
Yep.
I really don't think that's fair. So just why I'm not entitled to an opinion on it because I'm not watching it. For all those people that say Raw sucks, did you watch last week's episode? Because I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it sucked because I didn't watch it. You shouldn't be able to read something and go, that sucked.
Yeah. You got to form your own opinions, people.
In my opinion. So that's why when someone's like, Josh, talk about wrestling, it's like, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's right for me to talk about wrestling because I'm not watching it. I'm just simply not watching it. I've checked pretty much completely out. Here and there, I'll see little clips and sure, comment on those. But I don't think it's right to talk about wrestling if you're not watching it. Just my opinion. I know a lot of people won't agree, but I don't think it's fair to say something sucks when you aren't watching it.
I agree. I think, and then there are plenty of people that form opinions just solely based on other opinions that they've read. And if that's your prerogative, you do you. But you got to have your own opinions. You got to have your own opinions. Yeah, you got to have your own.
And it's just a little bit, like, I know JPJ's not necessarily not watching wrestling. He's watching wrestling, but it'd be a pretty one-sided conversation. I'd just be sitting here like, sure, that's happening.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So,
and I'll be like, yeah, sadly. Yeah,
listen, me and JPJ have tons of other interests that are not professional wrestling, that are also kind of more interesting than wrestling anyway. And we kind of just do this show for us. We kind of just, we want people to watch, but like if no one watched me and JPJ, honestly, we're not putting too much emphasis on it because we just get to hang out once a week and just talk about whatever.
And chat and
we've learnt about different things throughout our backgrounds about ourselves, and it's like interesting to hear different perspective on things and stuff like that. So I don't know, we're just having a vibe. But anyway, next week, same time as NXT, you actually get to hear us talk about wrestling. So come and hang out with us then. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be back with a normal episode of the J&J Power Hour, Thursdays, 9 p.m. Australian Central Standard Time. Whoa, just nearly died right on air. But anyway, until next time, folks, we're out of here. Peace out.